right now it's really important that people are still engaged and still volunteer even through COVID. So can you talk a little bit about how COVID has affected the refugee community and volunteers?
When we talk about COVID has become a part of our life right now, that everything has been impacted by COVID-19. And that means refugees and volunteers, they are also being impacted by COVID-19. COVID-19 is not bringing people together. It's just keeping people away from each other for the sake of precautions and policies that are being implemented through COVID-19. So COVID-19 has impacted the volunteers by not giving in more time as they used to do to support refugees, because the time that they have right now, they're taking care of their families, especially children, their parents, their siblings. So the time that was given to volunteers is now back. Like volunteers has now taken their responsibility back to their families. And that means refugees are no more seen as they used to be seen by volunteers in terms of support.
Mm-hmm.
And there is also fear of exposure. Volunteers are also scared, of coming in apartments and maybe they might be carrying the virus, or the person they are going to see might be having a virus. So probably that has to, to bring a fear to two parties to stay apart. And there is also less communication, because by then, before COVID-19, volunteers was, moving forward to go to apartments and check on, on the refugees, on physical appearance. And they were working very hard to see that they can communicate no matter what. However much it is difficult, they would use Google Translator. They can use sign language to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, communication cannot happen on the phone or Zoom to some individuals who doesn't understand English. It is very hard. So language also has brought, COVID-19 has, impacted those people with limited language to be seen or to be clear communication with the people who wanted to support them.
Yeah.
So I summarize that also there is less resources. Volunteers who have been supporting, they also have other needs that are consuming their available extra resources that they used to have.
Yeah.
They are now changing these resources back to their families, which is reasonable and understandable. So you see, when you, based on those four reasons, it is all of them are understandable. However, there are volunteers who are still supporting on a minimum capacity, like very little capacity. There are those who still care. There are those who are still offering their small time to call and communicate.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, they have been so supportive remotely. So they have been supporting with rent and, a lot of things.
Right.
On a smaller basis.
Obviously, there are these issues that are very reasonable from COVID-19. And we're not saying go be together and do everything that you used to do. It's still very important to be cautious and take precautions for COVID-19. But there are many ways that you can still be involved and be active and help. So can you talk a little bit about those ways that volunteers still can help? You mentioned financially, if possible. That's a great way to help. Calling. What else?
Most of refugees and immigrants, they lost jobs because of COVID-19. They lost income. This COVID-19 impacted vulnerable people more than somebody else.
Right.
And when we talk about refugees, they are under the group of vulnerable people. So a volunteer may feel like starting to have this communication or trying to support a refugee will start now bringing in all these needs. They need rent, they need food, they need medical attention during this COVID-19. So that also makes someone who wants to help that it is too much and it's overwhelming. and they don't want to take that, to take all that responsibilities. So they just need to keep away from them. But I'll prove them that this is the right time that they can still support refugees. So there is available resources. Government has provided very many available resources. There's available resources, like there is housing assistance, there is unemployment, there's a lot of ways of doing it. But the only challenge is, if you are a volunteer, you can still help a refugee go through this process to get this benefit.
To access the
Yeah,
benefits.
access them. Yeah,
Mhm.
because you may find them, the resources are there, people who need the resources are there, but the challenge is how to access them. You see, so they may not have computers. They have there is language literacy a problem. There is a technology problem. But volunteer has all that in the mind that can support someone access benefit back by applying, by referring to housing programs available. You know, like they are top, volunteers are top of the resources. These people have no idea if they are not connected to agencies. So I will call upon volunteers to show up. They can still offer services remotely. They can still support refugees remotely as other agencies doing, because we need them.
Mhm.
Yeah, we need them.
How about refugees who need support? If there are anyone watching that thinks, "Wow, I'd really like to get connected with someone who could help me out," what do you advise for them?
I know refugees, the most barrier in the community is language, but I will argue with any refugee or immigrant out there who feel like they need help. We can still use the friends to get other friends and to get other volunteers, like steps by step. Someone who knows me can still use me to be connected to someone. You see, the best thing with volunteers, the best thing I like with the volunteers is that if you are connected on one person, you will end up being connected to a million of people. Because every volunteer, when they find out that you are in need of something, and maybe that particular volunteer don't have it, we'll always have someone in mind who will help you, and will make sure that is connecting you to that. It can be either driving, it can be either housing, it can be either food, it can be either computer, can be either technology, either school. They will always have ways of connecting you to people, to experts who can help you.
Mhm.
So I will urge this community to come out and express their needs to people, to friends who are already connected to volunteers.
Great.
Yeah.